right, they can hear us now. Let me turn the music down. I got too many screens open. It's cursed techno. And here we go.
I like techno.
Hello, internet.
Hola, internet.
We here. We here. Even in the midst of all the crazy.
We are not anywhere else.
That's true.
As according to the governor's ruling.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we are Michiganders, and we, along with some other states, are in official lockdown. My mic is not in the right spot or something. And for the next 3 weeks, starting at midnight tonight, we are not supposed to leave our house unless we absolutely have to, for food or medical purposes.
Or, to go outside and exercise. That's acceptable as well.
Anybody who's considered essential personnel to something can leave. Funny fact, I'm considered essential personnel, and I work in financial services, so that's weird. But we're here. Hopefully, we will talk about the virus, I'm sure, at some point. Probably most of the podcast, because it's affecting almost everything, even the nerd world. But how have things been? It's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. We've had 1 week of what I would call partial lockdown. And 1 week before that of just normal life.
Yeah, last week I was on vacation. I took vacation week because it is the holiest of holy days, technically your birthday, St. Patrick's Day.
True.
To release a little too much private information for you there, but I love St. Patrick's Day. I usually go out. We have a nice big pub crawl here in our town. And this week, because I've been with my company for a long time and I am fortunate enough to have a lot of vacation, decided I'm just going to take the whole week off because I need to use it up. It turns out I didn't get to do any of that stuff. In fact, I ended up working a good chunk of it and just stayed at home the whole time. So that was fun. We also purchased a couch because ours broke because we have a bunch of kids. And that will now not be delivered. It was supposed to be here tomorrow morning. So conveniently timed, the lockdown has stopped that shipment. So that's that. Other than that, we're just hoarding as much toilet paper as we can. And I'm just joking. We are not hoarding toilet paper.
Keeping it on. I was actually in a grocery store on Sunday. So that was yesterday. And I was walking through and I saw just like 4 packs of toilet paper. And even though I have no desire or need for toilet paper, obviously
we all need it at some point.
We all need it, but like right now, like
we all want it.
Plenty.
Let's say that we want toilet paper. We don't need it. We want it.
Like modern day toilet paper wasn't invented until 1850 and wasn't used widespread until like almost 1900. Like humanity is done fine without it. That being said, it's nice. I like to have it. So but I just bought it because just 1 4-pack, just because.
It's fine.
I'm like, I am now one of those people.
You are a hoarder, I guess.
It's not like I went through and bought half the stock just because. But
we were like, we have not been freaking out. We have 6 people in my family, so we tend to have a decent amount of food on hand just because there's a lot of people here. And so we've been doing mostly normal grocery shopping. We're not buying anything extra. We have little kids, so we had we have a bunch of cleaning supplies and disinfectants anyway. So I guess we were kind of fortunate in that, but we're not hoarding. And today, after the announcement, I ran up to the grocery store just to see if there was anything we needed. And it's like mayhem. Like all the flour's gone, all the salt's gone, all the sugar's gone, all the meat's gone, all the toilet paper's gone, all the disinfectant stuff's gone. Like, it's quite crazy, to say the least. But bless our system, because this has happened multiple times in the past 2 weeks, and 2 days from now, everything will be
back.
We'll be back. So we haven't been worrying about it.
Like the thing that I always like to remind people, especially when we're in times like this, like your local grocery store essentially has 3 days worth of product for its normal clientele.
Yep.
And so 3 days is not very much. And if everybody goes in there and starts thinking, oh, I need to get like 2.5 weeks worth of stuff, like it empties the shelf like immediately. And then the warehouses and the trucks and everything restock everything, but it's a matter of time.
Yep. We have a pretty amazing system here. We are lucky most countries probably don't have the ability to just magically restock shelves the next couple days. So I know there's some weird complaints out there about the system and food shortage. I'm like, there's not a food shortage. Like you said, there's a stocking shortage, but that's should be expected. Just wait a couple days, some more stuff will get put out. So yeah, that's that. Anything else in the last 2 weeks? Do you have any fun things?
Not really. As we discussed, they canceled my birthday, so that was fun.
They did cancel your birthday. Straight up canceled it. I don't know if people went out. They didn't like officially. I never saw an official thing for like the pub crawl or anything was canceled, but I assume.
Well, the fact that all bars.
Oh, they did close the bars before that day, didn't they? That's right.
Yeah, it was the day before on Monday that Michigan governor was like, any restaurants or basically anything that
could only do to go
eating, could only do to go. And for bars, that's pretty much like, no, well, that's nothing.
I guess I'd stopped looking at it because we had already decided just socially ourselves, our group of people, where we were not going to go just because things were getting crazy. And I'll be honest, I'm more afraid of the people than I am the virus.
Sure.
Like, I didn't want to be downtown with a couple thousand drunk people and all of a sudden somebody breaks out in hysteria or something like that. Just didn't sound fun to me.
That guy's got corona.
Yeah, somebody sneezes and all of a sudden, and you know, we live in a rural enough area that all of a sudden guns would probably be going off and stuff. Like just because a sneeze happened, I'm sure. So we're like, we're just gonna stay in. But it's crazy, that's for sure. We're fortunate enough to be able to work from home too, so I know we have some friends that are feeling it because they're in the service industry, and they just, you know, if you rely on tips and things like that for your existence, I understand why we're doing social distancing and all that kind of stuff, but we got to remember the things we're doing to the economy can be just as bad as the virus in some regards. If you are say a single mother working night to night for tips, like this is a really brutal time for you. But everybody stay safe out there. Everybody take care of each other. Do what you can to stay in, I guess. It is a gnarly thing. If you look up some of the videos from at least Europe, there are some really gnarly videos of the people who are trying to get treated for the pneumonia and they just can't keep up with it no matter how much oxygen they have and stuff. It is pretty gnarly when you get the bad version of it. Or at least if you have a bad reaction to it, I guess is probably a
better way of saying it.
So stay safe, stay in if you can, all that kind of stuff. So should we distract ourselves with some corona virus, COVID-19 comic book news and movie news and whatever else?
You mean the news that there are no new movies for like 3 months now, or at least?
Yeah, the only surprising one, so I saw Widow was delayed. We had already seen Bond delayed. We talked about that, which that was just the outskirts. Like that was before things kind of went really gnarly. And gnarly is a word I'm bringing back. I've been trying for weeks now. I'm going to see if this works. But I saw Wonder Woman still a go so far, but that's out in June.
Well, that's not till June, So they're
early June though.
Yeah. But it's probably holding on, thinking it can be like the first big return to the theater sort of thing.
If it can pull that off, it'd probably be huge for it because I think most people are excited because the first one was so good, and if it can be that first return, it might be a big deal. So, yep, I saw those.
Yeah, and pretty much everything up until then, that's any decently like propped up movie or like advertised movie has pretty much been canceled. Like not canceled, but postponed. Which includes like the third time that New Mutants is just getting pushed back.
Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah, because they were originally supposed to release that years ago or something, right?
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago or something. And it was originally supposed to come out, and then they wanted to do some reshoots on it, and then Disney bought it during the reshoots, and then they were like, no, we're going to push it back even further. And I was like, oh, all right. But I have a theory.
Go ahead. I like theories.
My theory, which has no substance whatsoever other than I want it to be true, is that I think that the additional delays once Disney bought Fox with the New Mutants movies is because they want it to be a low-key sneak into the Marvel universe. Because there's not really anything in that movie that directly relates it to the Fox version of the X-Men that
Sure.
like is overt or needs to be, at least according to the previews and what we've seen. So there's no reason it can't just kind of like exist in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe without, and it doesn't even have to necessarily play up those ties, but like they could just drop in a typical Marvel post credits like, oh look, this exists here, and then it's like, oh, okay, we have mutants now.
Maybe that's our first tiptoe into the mutant universe. That would be great because I'm excited for X-Men. Have always been a huge part of my fandom. Like they were really early for me, and also in the 90s watching the animated series, which is amazing. I think like
the 90s one was really good,
super good. The Fox like kids, even though it was pretty heavy at times, like really heavy sometimes.
It was really more of a like teen
Yeah.
show than I mean, I guess it wasn't teen, even probably pre-teen, but more so than kids.
Well, it
Little
dealt
kids.
with like some, obviously with the mutant storylines there's a lot of ties to like racism, right? Like the idea of it. So and they go full-fledged in the even the cartoon there multiple times, so it's kind of interesting to watch. But I was super excited to see the mutants come home because it's been a rough ride for them ever since X-Men 2.
It has been a lot of ups and downs, with
And the
more
ups are
down.
kind of okay. I don't know if they're like First Class was decent, and
First Class was, I thought, pretty good. It was kind of cheesy, but like it did the 60s cheese kind of
right.
well. And then Days of Future Past I thought was really good.
That was decent.
Not perfect, but really, other than possibly X-Men 2, none of them have been perfect.
Right. Logan. Old Man Logan was
Old Man Logan was good.
I mean, it's just
Probably,
good, but that was
right.
my favorite thing since X-Men 2. But for sure. But it's kind of outside of it too, like the universe they were building. So I mean, it's not, but it is.
Yeah, it's definitely beyond anything that they really went to, and it definitely didn't fit within the Days of Future Past.
Right.
But it was a really good movie.
I need to rewatch it. It's been a minute, and it is super good. Super good. So, what else did you have? Anything else on delayed movies or anything?
Only that I really just, yep. Now that I'm stuck in my home for the better part of 3 weeks, all I really want to do is just go to the movie theater, which is probably the worst idea ever. But
yeah, that's a lot of memes running around where it's like people just want to sit inside and play video games and watch Netflix, and now they're being told they gotta stay inside, and they're like, "No, I want to go out." It's like any other time you'd be glued to your television or your video game console or something. So I get that. Like people are gonna go stir crazy for sure. My kid actually talked about wanting to go back to school today. And I was like, okay, we still got a long ride, and you're already getting antsy.
yeah,
I think the best news I've heard so far, reading through a bunch of stuff today, was that Star Trek Discovery season 3 has been delayed because
that's good news.
they don't want to shoot during all of this, obviously, and that is fantastic news. Like, that show is absolutely atrocious. I hope it gets delayed forever.
I can say maybe they'll just end up canceling it at some point. You know,
like it would be really nice if they did. Like I have a feeling that their streaming service sucks, but that's probably one of their heavy hitters. Even though it's compared to like a Netflix show, it's probably doing absolutely nothing.
Well, I don't know what strings they pulled or whether it was just always built into their contract with the Star Trek franchise, but with this whole outbreak of COVID stuff, like one of the things CBS has been pushing is like they now have every single Star Trek TV episode ever that they're streaming, which
I mean, CBS has owned all that, right, for a long time.
Are they part of Paramount?
Yeah, yeah.
In that case, then yes.
I'm pretty sure they're related to Paramount, the same parent company, and they've always done the TV shows. I'm pretty sure that they always
Well, I
have been
know
him.
like a lot of the TV show stuff. Well, obviously it went into syndication pretty quickly.
Right.
Whether it's, I guess I never really paid attention to who it actually aired on first back in the day.
Did I
That makes
put
sense.
this in the wrong group?
What group did you put it in?
LOL, I think I did. How did I even do that? Sorry, I was just looking at Facebook posts that I posted for our thing, and I put it in a Facebook group instead of the actual Facebook somehow. I don't know how I did that.
Interesting.
I really don't. So now I'm going to put it in normal space. I'm also going to do this over here, which probably should have already done. So tonight's beer, since we aren't doing anything, is short sponsor us, Critterless. So I'm a gigantic sour guy. I love the sours.
They are tasty.
Very, very tasty stuff. And the Critterless is not my favorite. Shorts does another one called Peachy Pom Pom. I think is actually a little better. Critterless is right up there. Like, it is super delicious. And it is out right now. So I
looked at that when I did my lunch break post lockdown announcement shopping and stopped at the beverage company. But I did not buy it.
Well, you screwed up.
No, because instead I bought this.
Oh, man.
Which is, for those of you not from Michigan, and specifically Northern Michigan, you probably have no idea what this is, and that's fine. But you're missing out, because this is, I'm not a giant gin person, but this gin, it's amazing.
Is it got high enough alcohol content you can use it as a disinfectant?
What does it have to be to do that?
60%. So it'd have to be 120 proof.
No, it's not. Nope, just a normal. Well, it's 45, so that's not too bad, but definitely not disinfectant level.
Oh, 45 is a little higher than the normal 40. That's not too bad. Yeah, you need 60% by volume, I believe, for it to be considered a disinfectant.
I'll just leave the cap off and let it evaporate out a little bit.
I think alcohol evaporates faster than water. I don't think that's gonna work.
That might be a bad idea. I'll just put it in the freezer, really, really cold, and pour it out. No.
Right.
So in other news, there was supposedly a leak that they are bringing Charlie Cox back as Daredevil to be Spider-Man's lawyer in Spider-Man 3.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, which one's Charlie Cox? Is he the one that plays?
He's the one from the Netflix series.
Right? Oh, that would be super good.
I don't know if it's just a rumor or not. If it's true, that would be pretty great.
I super hope that's true, because I really liked those Netflix shows for the most part. I mean, okay, Daredevil was super good. I really liked what's her face? Jessica Jones I thought was super good. And then Power Man was decent, or Luke Cage. And then the Iron Fist was terrible. It's watchable, but it's terrible, especially if you're comparing it to the other shows. So if I'm going to tier them off, that's my tier list.
Which season 2 of Iron Fist was better than season 1.
Yeah, I'd say,
but it was still not great.
But it's obnoxious. I don't know if it's the kid they got to play Iron Fist, or if Spectre Speed is here. We're just cuffing this tonight, man. Lots of so's and ums. Usually I have like a whole page of notes.
My favorite thing is to just sit.
We didn't forget Daredevil. That's how the conversation started. Is let's play some COD. Let's COD while we're.
You know what? Let's just do that instead of talking. There we go.
But Daredevil is the S tier, if you will, of those Netflix shows for sure. Yeah. And if they can reuse him and keep his character too, I would most definitely be happy about that, because I love the Daredevil show for sure. Jessica Jones too. I would keep both of those. Luke Cage was fine, and Iron Fist was blah. You can leave that. I don't care about that so much. I want Iron Fist to be cool. That should be cool.
I'm back to Luke Cage.
that needs to be a cool thing, but they did not do a good job with the Iron Fist show. And I don't know. I was just saying, I don't know if that was that kid they got or if it was the producers or whatever. Oh no, Ryan, you're breaking up.
Yeah. Well,
good thing we're recording this on my end. I can say whatever I want, no matter how much the internet goes down. I have it recorded. You thought Luke Cage was trash? I didn't think it was trash. And Ryan, we still can't hear you. You're frozen on my screen. It's bad.
Well, that's not good. Can you hear me fine?
Nope. It's all, you're like robot broken up.
Oh, just be quiet.
Spectre says Jessica Jones is the best. I don't know if I would agree with that. It is super good. I did like it. I thought Daredevil was the best. Luke Cage was fine. I liked it. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't have minded to see more. It was just Iron Fist was the only one I did not like. Oh, Ryan.
Maybe I know what to do now. I still just not sure.
Cannot.
Good Lord.
Sad, sad day.
Oh, I even got work here on Twitch now.
We had some calls earlier on Zoom, which is what we're using, and they were bad for work. So I don't know if this is Zoom or if this is you, but whatever it is, we cannot hear you. But what would be one of our podcasts without technical difficulties, folks? Come on. Spectre Speed says Defenders win. So yes, I did enjoy the Defenders crossover for sure. Fix my category. What is my category? Oh, that's why you were saying COD. Be more specific, yo. Nope. Sorry, Ryan.
Still.
I'm gonna have to mute you. So we talked about a bunch of delays on movies and how everything's kind of closed down. Oh, you're okay. I didn't read the second message. I just read the first one where you said COD, and then I started yapping, and I skipped down to Jessica Jones. Let's talk about COD for a minute, because we do talk about video games, and I'm mostly obsessed lately with battle royales, as I think almost everybody is. And Apex Legends has been kind of where everything has gone for me. Like I have 500 hours into that game now. I have lots of complaints about it, lots of netcode issues, hit reg problems, but when that game is on, it's on. Like it feels super good. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of character in the game. The different characters have strengths and weaknesses that don't tend to break the game unless you're talking Gibby. That guy is fucking broke. Delete him, please. But other than that, the game is super fun. And then recently, if anybody's been living under a rock, Call of Duty Modern Warfare has released a free-to-play Warzone, which is a battle royale, and a different mode called Plunder, which is kind of fun. I've actually been playing that more lately. So Warzone is a pretty large map. It feels a lot more, say, PUBG than it does, say, Apex Legends or Fortnite or any of those. And it plays a lot better than PUBG. PUBG is hot garbage. I played a couple hundred hours of PUBG, and that game was awful. And other than a couple random weird things, like you can't hear footsteps half the time and people can sneak up on you, and it's just bonkers how little audio feedback you get. Or things like somebody will shoot a sniper rifle 200 meters away and it sounds like it's 10 feet from you. Or somebody will shoot from 10 feet away from you and it still sounds the same as the 200 meter away one. Other than that, though, it's super fun. It's been I'm more and more I play it, the more and more I like it. Ryan, your video is smoothing out a little bit. Are we able to hear you?
Yeah,
oh,
you
my
might be
goodness.
able to.
That does sound better.
Everything internet-wise on my side is just basically went through a fart and
Garbage.
doused them. Yeah.
Who's downloading prawn upstairs? Come on.
Well, there's only 2 options.
So we've narrowed it down. So Doom, yes. Creasel, the Doom looks amazing. So funny story there. CDkeys.com, and I'm not endorsing them in any way, shape, or form. Not that they're bad or illegal, but they're a bit sketch sometimes. Had the new Doom for like $40. And I was like, yes, I'm buying that jazz. So I snagged it and I got
they've
it.
got the like $20 version, don't they? Like,
Well, I snagged it, and apparently the reason it was that cheap was it was the Euro region lock only. So I have the key, but unless I do some funky VPN business, I'm not sure I can use it. So I've asked for a refund. I don't know if I'm going to get it. So the only reason I haven't played Doom yet is because I'm waiting for that to sort out. And to be honest, with all the things going on, I've had a lot of time to dedicate to a game like that. So I may just wait till it hits $30 naturally, because usually the Doom single player games like that, after a month or two of being out, drop considerably fast in price. So yeah, I have a key sitting here. If somebody in Europe is listening to this and you want it for $40, hell, I can give it to you for 30 if they don't refund the money. Let me know. I'll sell you the key. But yeah, Doom looks fantastic. I've been watching some of the tear parts of there's one channel I watch on YouTube that tears DF something. Anyway, I'll find it, put it in the show notes or something. They tear things apart like crazy, performance wise, FPS, all the hardware, things you need, console, computer, everything. They go nuts, and they've been looking at it and they said it just runs and looks beautiful. And everything I've seen so far, it really does. And if it's anything like what they did in the first one, in the 2016 Doom, which is absolutely fantastic. What's this? Xbox PUBG broadcast that I'm in. I got a message on Facebook about the podcast. I'm not gonna broadcast this on Xbox, so I'm sure the browser can open this on Xbox. Anyway,
probably
the new Doom looks absolutely fantastic, and I am really stoked to play that. That will be coming. I'll probably stream it for a little while. I was hoping I would have that to feed me through a good, at least first half of or at least in through spring, because obviously my one true love right now is Cyberpunk 2077, and we're still slated for a September release on that. Because my original week off that I took actually for your birthday, I was going to save for April, which was when the original release date for Cyberpunk was supposed to be, and I was going to take a whole week off and like stream it every day and just play the living hell out of it, because I'm super stoked for that. Depends on shelter in place states. For what? For Cyberpunk or for Doom, or I don't understand. This beer is so damn good. Oh yeah. Cyberpunk. No, it'll be out in September, I'm sure. As far as I know, they've been pretty much ready. The vast majority of what the rumors are, there's some other things they've been tweaking since they have extra time, but they were pretty much ready. And the only thing that they're really waiting on is the console release, because they don't think they can run it like on the Xbox One X or Xbox One 7 or something. There's some goofiness there that I'm almost confident is there, and there's not like any solid proof of that, but it does, or if there is, I haven't seen it. But I believe that they're waiting for the new consoles to come out so they can release it on that instead. Which, that's fair enough. Though I wish, as a PC player, I didn't have to wait.
Well, I like to think that it may come out and actually be a finished product.
Yeah, with that extra time, it better be polished.
There have been so many games that just, I feel like it's very rare lately for a game to come out and be perfect.
It's definitely an interesting thing. So back in the day, obviously you didn't have the ability to patch. So we'd get games that were pretty polished, but obviously had limitations because they were small. They could only fit on a CD or a floppy disk, depending on how far back we go. or a couple floppy disks like the original Doom. But they couldn't patch them, so they had to at least be somewhat perfect before they got released. Where now the grand scope of these games are so much more complicated. They're like 80 gigs if you're lucky, and they absolutely rely on just using the player base as a test bed and fixing things in post, I guess, if that's the term we want to use. That is frustrating when games come out and they're kind of hella broken. I hope that's not the case for Cyberpunk, but we'll see. As long as they patch it quick, that'd be nice. And I'm expecting some sort of brokenness. If you're a Witcher 3 fan at all, there's goofy things that happen in that game all the time, but it almost lends to the charm of the game because the core of it works and it's fine. Even if there's weird physics once in a while, you get stuck in weird spots of the map, your horse is being a total poo brain. It's still a lot of fun. We've been cooped up and so crazy that we actually broke out an Xbox 360.
Whoa.
And got out some Kinect games for the kids, and they've actually been playing on the 360 because there's some things on there that don't work on the Xbox One. So that's been interesting. I found an Xbox 360 Kinect for $10 at our local used video game store.
Nice. I have a wired Rock Band 360 controller that I bought on accident thinking it was wireless, which I can't use with my Xbox One. The wireless ones I can, ironically, but the wired one I cannot. And I may have a Rock Band game for the 360 floating around somewhere if you guys want to borrow.
Hack the planet! Hey,
Do
Spectre. Thank you so much for that, host. I appreciate that. If you did have an extra 360 Rock Band / controller laying around, that would be fun. Ethan does really enjoy it. We have Guitar Hero, garbage Guitar Hero for the Xbox One, and which we've talked about before, and it's unfortunate that we don't play that more because it's just so hard to play. Like it fights you. It doesn't even want you to play the game. Just getting into the songs is a huge pain in the ass. Like there's this whole radio feature. You got to have tokens to buy time. It's so bad.
That seems pretty bad. Nothing like making it hard for you to play the game that you bought.
It's just a bad game, like all the way around. He's been playing the Michael Jackson Experience, Just Dance kind of ripoff that Ubisoft. I mean, it's not a ripoff because Ubisoft makes both of them, but it's basically Just Dance, but it's only Michael Jackson songs. It's been kind of fun.
That would be pretty fun. I have very rarely played Just Dance, usually because I am with the company of people who would play a game such as Just Dance, and they convince me, which is not often. It is not my cup of tea.
Here's second sticker. Let's go. It's been hard this week. I didn't stream it all this week, so with all the craziness going on and just work, it's getting to be the end of the quarter, and I have a lot of commits at work that need to be focused on and stuff. I just haven't. I only play games a couple minutes here and there, and haven't been sitting down for like actual long streams. So sorry if you've been saving up for that sticker. It's been a rough week for that, but that is a good reminder since we're on the subject. If you do watch and you stay around, especially if you sub, Twitch Prime subs are free if you have Amazon Prime. You get channel points, and I actually have real merch in there, which is a fun thing that I figured out, and I think that I have them priced kind of right for how much they cost me to give you. So all the way up to a t-shirt or even a $50 gift card of your choice for like Steam or Xbox or PlayStation, Nintendo, whatever you want. We'll work it out if you turn in those points. Just make sure you turn them in when I'm watching and that you like get with me, because there's sometimes it's not 100% obvious. It just shows up in the chat, and the chat can go away and stuff. So just make sure that you do it at a point where I'm paying attention and you get a hold of me and let me know that you did it. But yeah, you can get merch for our store. So drop that sub, support the channel. We'll be back to regular streaming here. I don't know if this week. I might do a couple sessions here and there, but definitely next week we'll be back on it full time after the quarter's done and work's kind of lightened up a little bit.
So I did something horrible this week.
Oh, good. Tell me.
I paid for 1 month of World of Warcraft.
Oh my god.
Oh, I know.
Classic or just?
Well, it's both.
Right, you get both, but are you going to play classic or?
I don't know. I may play retail. Right now, retail has 100% experience boost on everything, so I'm like, maybe I'll just get on and play some lobbies and just see what happens.
This is my face when you say that.
No, I know.
So,
But I have moved to the point now where I no longer do subscriptions ever. If I'm going to do it, I will pay the $15 one-time 1 month thing.
my
Because
biggest problem with newest WoW and why I stopped playing it, and I actually went through a box of things in the other room, and I still have all my old boxes, because I had all the physical media all the way up through Cataclysm, which was the last one I played. But it just got too easy, and people like not having that 300-hour grind to get to 60 like ruined the game for me. And maybe I'm an elitist and I'm a sweaty tryhard or whatever, but you had all these kids and people who were normies like getting in their game, and like all of a sudden they were 60 without even trying and like getting max levels, and then by the time you get to Cataclysm, they're just, for like 10 minutes of work, they're handing out almost raid level epics. Like, oh my god, it was so bad. It's so bad.
well, I don't know if this will get better or worse. Could be either way, but they are supposedly with the next expansion, they're looking at basically having all the levels where your original baseline will basically be 1 to 20, and then after like that'll be your original vanilla release areas, and then from there you basically get to pick
Gear score.
like one expansion to go into for like say like 20 to 40, and then like another one from like 40 to 60. And
It's
then I think,
it's not the same expansion for everybody from 20 to 40.
well, the biggest thing they've been doing with this most recent expansion is that pretty much everything is every zone that you go to from 1 to the current expansion more or less fits your level, or at least within the expansion, it like
Scales.
scales it to your level.
How does it do? Does it zone everybody off? Because in old WoW, you just find all sorts of people all over the place.
It everybody is still around. So like if you're in the like the homeland vanilla sections continents, like you might run into somebody who's like 120. But they've also now instituted even on PvP servers that you can essentially turn on and off your PvP flag. So like if you're just trying to level, you can just say, hey, I'm not in
Sure.
PvP mode, and then you don't have to worry about it too much. But mobs just correlate to your character specifically.
Hmm.
And then if you, I don't remember which way it works. I think that if you party with somebody who's like way lower than you, it basically scales you down, or you'll still be more powerful than them, but it doesn't like if you were a 120 character with like a level 10 character, you'd be essentially the equivalent of like a 12 or something, where you're still significantly more powerful than the mobs and stuff, but you still have to pay attention essentially. But
That's interesting.
so with that in mind, they're basically making like the vanilla experience compacted into 1 to 20. And I don't remember if it's in 10 level jumps or 20 level jumps, but you work through like the first, when you get to level 20, you basically choose whether you want to do Burning Crusade or Lich King. You pick one or the other, and then that's the route you take for like your next 10 levels. And then you choose Cataclysm or Pandoria, which is like the next 10 levels, and then you choose what came after that. I think maybe the like Draenor. But yeah, you choose Draenor or the Legion one that was the last expansion, which gets you to 50, and then from 50 to 60 is the current expansion, and then at 60 is like the new expansion when it comes out, and it just kind of resets things a little bit
So
for
the
end
new
game stuff.
expansions can be 60.
60 to 70 will be the new expansion.
So how does that work if you're 120 now?
When the expansion happens, then it basically you become 60. Everything gets halved. And then
Interesting. Sounds like a clusterfuck.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's a game that's what, 15 years old now or something. How old is it?
Way too old. Way too old.
A living game with that much history. I mean, it's going to be messy, but all in
Yeah,
all,
I
mean,
mean, you
a good
definitely
handle
have to expect that because, like, you're right. It's old, and I'm sure nobody at Blizzard ever assumed that Worlds of Warcraft would be a almost 20-year-old game and still be going. Like, it's
Yeah.
obviously not the peak that it ever was with its 15 million subscribers or whatever monthly, but it's still cash cow and it still gets played. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a thing. So, yeah, I can't imagine anybody there was ever planning on that. So when you go to design the game, when you go to architect the game, you're like, all right, let's just get a game that'll last like 3 months. So I'm sure nowhere were they like, all right, what's our leveling system going to be if it has to last 20 years? What's XP
Yeah.
going to look like? What's gear score going to look like if it's going to last fucking 20 years? And that's unfortunate because it would be nice. I'd probably still be playing it today if that stuff had been thought out, because that's the stuff that ruined it for me, because I liked the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a nostalgia thing. I'm happy to bring on change. I'm happy to bring on, the thing to morph, but the underlying core of the game needs to stay the same. Like, add new content, that's fine. But they broke that and they seem to change it every so many expansions. And so far, to me, other than Lich King, like, they haven't really gotten it right ever since vanilla. And that's my personal opinion, whatever.
Sure.
But it drives me nuts that they have not been able to get good scaling from, like, experience from level 1 to max level since then. And so maybe this whole rework, maybe it'll let them do that. Maybe you'll have a good experience. I hope they don't go the route of Destiny, because if you played Destiny 2, it's terrible. You basically get to a max level, and then they have all these expansions that you have to obviously buy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go off into them and get gear if you want, but it's all gear score related after that. And I don't know if I like that kind of system either. I mean, WoW does that.
That's
It's
kind of
always
how
done
the end
that,
game
right?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot more meat to leveling, I guess. I don't know. Where there's no meat to it in Destiny. It's just like you spend 5 seconds in your max level, and then the whole thing is just grinding that gear score up.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of this is, I think, so that they can kind of scale it closer to, like, it won't, like, they'll never go back to vanilla as it was. Like, WoW Classic is out there, you can go play that if you really, really want that experience. But like, I think the idea is to make it so they can make the leveling to 1 to 60 back into not a chore, but into something that requires effort, and then make it feel rewarding. And then when you get to the new content, you're like, okay, here we go. Scaling and everything is more reasonable, and you just kind of
Right, because
bust
you
it.
get that weird, like, power creep where, like, you're doing 100,000 per hit, like, damage, and it gets weird. Like, the scales get weird. And I'm no game designer, so I'm sure this is super difficult to balance all that stuff. It's
Well,
weird.
they've cut those numbers like a whole bunch of times anyways. Like every
Right.
new expansion that feels like, okay, even though like our level only went up like 10 levels, suddenly like all our stats are like tripled. And like by the time you start doing like the gear creep in the end game, is just like, holy crap, all these numbers are ridiculous.
Right.
And there's been a lot of times where like they've cut like all of the stats for max level by like 2/3, where like suddenly instead of like a tank having like 600k health, it's like, nope, you can go down to like 60k health because that's more reasonable or something like that.
See, it's weird to me because there's kind of two approaches. Like, if you watch like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, right? Like, 1 hit point is massive.
Mm-hmm.
Like to get an extra hit point is a big deal. Like, ones and twos
Especially
is
at
a
low
big deal.
levels.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, but you're not working in tens of thousands of hit points typically, but you look at something like WoW, where you are like hundreds of thousands of hit points possibly. But I get both sides, because the nice thing about having huge numbers, if it's all scaled right, is you get a lot of granularity, right? So, like,
Yeah.
if D&D 1 to 2 DPS is a big deal, it's hard to be like, well, I need to do 1.5. I mean, you can do it, whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, it's easier to say 1,000 to 2,000 DPS is a big deal. 1,500 makes sense to if I need you to go in the middle, or if I need you to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 1,234 damage per second. It's like you get to have a little more granular, at least in a way that makes sense, without having to go into like huge decimal points or whatever. You get to keep whole numbers and still be granular on how you balance things. So one skill to the next, you can have little increments of increase and decrease. So I get why they get big, but I don't know. It's a weird thing, game crafting theory. I've never gotten into it enough to know which way is good or which way is bad, but I always feel like when the numbers get too large, it just becomes weird and hard to balance, because at some point, in order for the mob to be dangerous, it's got to do 10 million damage. But then
with like a variation of like 5 million on either side of it, and it's like, oh
yeah, and then it's like, okay, now we're this huge gray area, and if you get anywhere low, like all of a sudden you're getting burned with 5 million damage. Like you can't. So keeping the numbers low means like it's all easy to keep it in the same area and not have these huge giant swings of DPS and healing and stuff that you got to deal with. I definitely noticed as a main healer in World of Warcraft that when the numbers started getting really huge, trying to stay ahead of weird burst damage was really hard. Like it started to get, instead of just sitting there and running through your rotation, sometimes you would just get weird burst damage that crit funny, and there's almost nothing you could do unless you were just happen to have a cooldown ready to help save. So it definitely gets weird when the numbers get that big too. So I'm sure there's some happy medium, and hopefully WoW gets there. I do miss WoW. I give a lot of people shit for playing it. So that face I was giving you earlier about going back in, I love it. I miss it. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I'll never get it back. The downtrodden, rest in peace. Guild was one of the crowning parts of my gaming history. I'll never have that back. That group of people were amazing. I'm sure none of them will watch this, but if you are, I love you guys. It was an awesome, like almost 10 years of my life. But I mean, the hardcore of that wasn't 10 years with those guys, but there was a long several years where it was.
Sure.
But I'm never gonna go back. I got not enough time, too many other responsibilities, and the game just isn't worth it anymore to me. I do watch a lot of MMOs come out though. I keep my eye on them, and none of them ever like. There's been like Black Desert Online, I think, seems pretty interesting for like a Chinese game. It's got a lot of depth to it, but really nothing's come out that just matches that scale. And I think it's because nobody wants to compete. The couple people who did try to compete with Worlds of Warcraft, like even Blizzard's own game that they canceled because they said they couldn't beat Worlds of Warcraft, like just everybody doesn't try to directly compete against it anymore. So you don't see that type of game being developed. And that's kind of sad because it'd be nice to see a new, fresh firm take a really hard stab at that type of game.
Yeah, the problem is that like you can approach it one of two different ways. Either you have to come up with a completely new model of what Warcraft looks like, from what Warcraft looks like, and turn into something that is not remotely the same. Which, how do you do that? I don't know. If I knew, I would be a millionaire, billionaire probably, because I would make it happen, and then I would be rich.
Well,
but go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, even if you could go back and almost rip off WoW, which if you look at games which I loved, which are like Warhammer Online, I wouldn't say it was a rip off, but very much in the same vein as EverQuest and Worlds of Warcraft, and that style of game. And I had a blast with that game. Absolutely loved it. It wasn't finished. EA pushed it out before it was done. There's all sorts of blogs you can read on the disaster that was the game development behind that. And Worlds of Warcraft had that luxury when it came out because EverQuest was a big deal in their tight-knit community, but it wasn't mass appeal yet, right? So when Worlds of Warcraft came out, it didn't have to have the end game done. It didn't have to be perfect. They weren't fighting for a giant market share of video game players. They were just kind of fighting a small market share, even though that was all owned
Yeah.
by EverQuest for the most part.
And the reality of it is like they were, even with as not player friendly as vanilla is compared to today's version of WoW, like it was way more player friendly than EverQuest was.
Absolutely. Or even like
EverQuest
Final
was like
Fantasy
hardcore
13
man.
or whatever.
11.
11. Yeah, that's
But
right.
11 came out significantly after World of Warcraft too. Like
But
it
it's
was
still not friendly. I played
no.
that game for like 3 hours and I was like, I'm done. This is awful.
That being said, the newest Final Fantasy one, which I've only played a few hours of, is actually pretty decent. And
Nice.
it is a very, very much living paid subscription MMO that is existing in this late
Space.
World of Warcraft era.
It gets the fortunate luxury of having Final Fantasy behind it, though. There's going to
Yeah.
be some Final Fantasy nerds are crazy for Final Fantasy stuff, so they have a built-in player base no matter what they do. Even when 11 was having all its problems and like they had to release that thing for the PlayStation so it could be played, or like people were still just trying to play it. Like they're just like, I want to play. I'm like, go play another game. Like, no, I want to play this. So they get lucky there. Where Warhammer didn't have that. I mean, there's a massive amount of people who really like Warhammer, but I don't know if that necessarily translates to gamer money and like online video game player money. And they came out with an unfinished product. So even though Worlds of Warcraft comparably was just as unfinished, I would say when it launched, it didn't matter because now you're fighting for 14 million a month subscribers at the time, and they all jumped ship to come to your game, used to having end game in WoW because by then it was all fixed and they had end game released. And then they go to Warhammer Online and none of that end game's there, and everything is just broken, especially by the end, and they just couldn't release fast enough and get that stuff out to keep everybody from, by the time they got anything out that was fun and they started fixing some of those problems, people had already jumped ship back to Worlds of Warcraft and they just tanked right off. It was a bummer because that game was super fun. And after that, I don't think anybody's really tried to go whole hog, try to become WoW killer.
Well, really the only other one. So you have the Final Fantasy 15 or 14, whatever this Final Fantasy one is, and then you've got the Elder Scrolls Online, which is still pushing forward.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like that became a very niche thing very quick. Like, people who loved it were like, "That's it, this is my game," but it never really grew. But they keep making new expansion. Like they just had a new expansion, I think, last fall. So it's not a dead game either.
Yeah, they're not dead by any means. I don't think they've ever like hit that Worlds of Warcraft. They had a huge boost when it first came out. But again, that's kind of like Final Fantasy where you have that built-in Elder Scrolls fan base, right? Like,
yeah.
And they were competent enough to make a fairly polished game right off the bat. So, and you have other ones like there's free to play if you want to play Neverwinter Nights. I played some of that. It's okay. It's fine. But yeah, it's just that WoW thing is insane.
And you still have the like Star Wars Old Republic floating around too, which I don't know when the last expansion for what that was, but it's been free to play for a while. But it's actually it's one of the
free to play.
Well, I mean, it's pretty limited with free to play, but you can, like, if you say, "Hey, buddy, why don't you make a new character in this and play with me?" He can make a free character and play with you, and it's like fully functional for like the first base game.
Yeah, there's parts near the end, and there's some other weird quirky things, and there's caps on how fast you can level and stuff. I think
I didn't know I didn't ever, at least when I played for free. Granted, I also, once you pay once, like you go to the next tier forever, which anyway, so maybe I just never experienced that because
I think that true free to play, there's some weird, either you're capped or people who pay get boost one way or the other, whatever. It works out to be the same way. So you can't level as fast or whatever, and there's some limits. And then by end game, there's certain things you can't do, and some expansion material I think you can't get to unless you pay some money. But that game isn't really a clone though of like the model. It's more like a multiplayer co-op RPG where you're working. You're working. It really on the
is
story.
More like, it's really more like Knights of the Old Republic 3.
Right, where you can just MMO get a group, and if you want to do raids, you can do all that kind of stuff. But it's not like Star Wars Online, which I unfortunately missed that boat for the most part.
But was it unfortunate?
Well, I heard it was super fun before they released Jedi. So before Jedi became like a major thing, it was a real This is kind of back to where Black Desert Online goes, which is like if you just want to go and be a Twi'lek or whatever, like pole dancer in like a pub, a cantina on some planet, you could literally just log in every day, do that, and make money. And like, there's an economy, and like,
Second Life Star Wars edition.
Seriously, it was like you go back and read and watch all the documentaries on it. Like, people would just set up as bartenders and make in-game currency and like actually trade and like have a whole life inside this game that was just them running this pub basically. Or you could be transport goods in your spaceship or however you wanted to do it. And then of course they had this crazy meta not mini game, but like quest line that randomly dropped something and made people become Jedi, which of course once people figured out how to do it, everybody started doing it, and then the game just broke, and then some months later it was basically dead because the game just broke once everybody became gods, essentially.
Nobody likes broken games.
Right. So the story's interesting. I've watched a bunch of documentaries. I didn't get to play any of it. I would have liked to have seen it before the Jedi thing came out because it seemed like it was pretty cool. You could have these huge bases. You'd have a guild and you'd set out on a planet and get a plot of land and you could build a base and have like a bazaar in it. And people could come in and like buy and trade goods and you could mount cannons on it. People could raid your base if they wanted to. Like all sorts of crazy, super cool stuff that to this day, we just don't see that in games anymore. In a certain way, we've evolved immensely in video game technology where things look photorealistic and the shooting mechanics are realistic. We have physics, we have all this stuff, but the creativity is just like tanked when it comes to things like sandboxes and stuff. Like it's really weird. Like we had games 15 years ago or more where an entire ecosystem could be developed just by the players, like in Star Wars Online, and you could do basically whatever you wanted, to now where it's like you're on a rail pretty much the whole time, even though you're in sandboxes. Like you can't, like I play like Division 2 for example is a sandbox game, and even though you're dumped in this giant city and it looks beautiful, you're really on rails. There's like 5 places you can kind of legitimately walk to and do things with. You're not really able to like, there's 300 buildings in this mile radius. Can I walk in and out of them and go up and down? And can I turn one of them into my base? Or like, you got none of that stuff. Like none of it. You don't even see other players when you're out and about. Like that's how weak it is. The same with Destiny. Like for the most part, when you're in doing things, there's not other players around like in WoW. Destiny's a little better when you're out in the general spaces. It's instance down to like 20 people or something. But it's still weird. Like WoW was way bigger in scope and scale than Destiny or Division 2, and those games are almost brand new in comparison and have the world's best technology behind them and bazillions of dollars of development. And if you look at scope and feel and immersion of something like Worlds of Warcraft or Star Wars Online, they don't even meet that. Like I get bored with these games. It's hard for me to stay involved. I'm not ever going to pump 3 years of playtime in Division 2. Never. And my like when I logged off my priest last time, I think she was close to 4 years worth of playtime. Like,
yeah,
that's just one of my max level characters I had. Like, so it like no game is gonna suck people into it. Like, it's just weird that with all of this technology, I mean, we get beautiful games that are super creative, like Doom. We were talking about the new Doom Eternals coming out, and I'm sure the game is beautiful and gorgeous. I love like Borderlands 3. I thought was super creative and fun from a story perspective, but it's not creative from my perspective as the player. I don't get to like edit or change or do what I want to the game. I have to follow its rails essentially. Yeah, I can tweak and customize gear, but that doesn't give you the immersion level, you know. Zelda Breath of the Wild is awesome, but I have to admit, we bought a Switch and I started playing it and I've been trying to play through it, but I rarely get to play with the Switch because my kids are almost always losing it or it's not charged or whatever. So typically by the time I get my hands on it, the Switch has been abused and used all day.
And by the time that they go to bed, you're in doing this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, right.
typically.
Like I want to come down here in my man cave type area and do this type of stuff. I haven't gotten super far into it, but it's nice in the sandbox. It's sandbox like GTA's sandbox, right? Like it has a big space where you can kind of just set off in a direction, or like say Skyrim is a sandbox. You can just set off in a direction and go. And those games are fun. And I've dumped a ton of hours into Skyrim and GTA 4 at least. I didn't play a lot of 5, but they still don't have, like, you can't just walk into every place. I mean, maybe in Skyrim you can because there's like 10 buildings, but yeah, I would like to play through it all the way. And every once in a while I do pick it up and put another hour or two into it, but it's such a long game. I'm sure I'm nowhere near near completion at all, like not even close. I do need to sit down and play. Maybe I will finally get a video capture card and I can sit down and maybe I'll stream it for a while. Maybe that'll be a goal sometime this year while I'm waiting for Cyberpunk to come out. That's
You
a good
know,
amount.
one of the yeah, that is a lot of hours. One of the things on my list of possible topics is, should I buy a Switch?
Should you buy a Switch?
Should I buy a Switch? Is it worth it for me to buy a
Hold
Switch?
on one second before I tackle that.
I think I should buy a Switch, but I'm not sure that I'm actually going to utilize it, which is my worry.
I just realized it's literally like 110 degrees in this room, and
Oh.
I'm turning red, and I'm dying. So I had to crack a window real quick. I can't even think it's getting so hot. So,
Well, in my house, just to kind of go through the thing here, I have an Xbox One. My roommate has a PS4. I have a couple PCs, a laptop, and a desktop that are both quality as far as playing games. So do I really need a Switch? Probably not. But do I really want to switch all of a sudden for like mostly no reason? Yes. Yes, I do.
I would say the portability is nice, but it's not enough. Like if you're on a 4-hour car ride without a charger, you're not going to play, right? Like you need to have at least power to really to make the portability nice. So I don't know if that interests you. If you want portable and you want to be able to play it on the run, it's awesome. I think that's a huge upsell. Obviously, that's not a problem for us because, yeah, there is the light version that does last longer. But I don't know if does that play everything. You don't get the Joy Cons and
It,
stuff, so that gets weird.
I'm pretty sure it plays everything, but you don't get any of like the big TV stuff. Like it's only portable.
Right. But it can't play everything because you like let's say is it Mario Party? One of those you have to have the Joy-Con sideways to play the game. Like you absolutely cannot play it without a Joy-Con. So there has to be limitations to some of the games you can play. Yeah, Mario Party. So that's the one I'm thinking of. Like you absolutely can't play that without the Joy-Con. So I
I'll
would
just
probably buy the full one. And here's something to remember: they maintain their value pretty well. So if you're a person that likes to sell stuff after you've used it a little bit, I'm not. I hoard. I have every video game system I've ever owned except for my Nintendo, which we've covered before. Thanks, Mom. And
it's better than selling it to buy a bowling ball.
that's true. Um, I like it. The kids like Breath of the Wild, for example. If you're somebody that want to get lost in that game, it is absolutely fantastic. If the main Mario game you get with it is super fun. I've actually played all the way through that. So I mean, for those old classics, it's fine. The problem I have is that's it. Like if it's not a Nintendo title, there's like you get things like Fortnite on there and like Skyrim, but like they don't play as well on that as it would say your PC or an Xbox.
Mhm.
They play fine for the fact that it's small and light, and they've optimized those games pretty well. But unless you want like Skyrim on the go, it's like yeah.
Nice.
See a Spectre, thanks for hanging out. And sorry I triggered you on whatever I said for the Switch. I don't know, the Switch is hard to me. It's pricey for what it is, I think. I of all this, because I've bought controllers, because obviously we have 4 kids, so I've had to buy extra controllers and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a lot of fun with it. The games that are good are definitely good. Like if you're into Pokemon games, the newest Pokemon game is stellar. The Breath of the Wild, like we were saying, is stellar. You know, all the Nintendo branded games are pretty much spot on, and that portability is nice. But with that said, unless you're really looking for those things, I don't know if it adds the value, because controllers are super expensive. The device itself, I think, is pretty expensive for what you get. Every game is going to be 50 plus bucks. Like, it is really hard even to find used games that are 30 or below. So it's a pain. Like, one of my favorite games on it's Mega Man X2 or whatever, but I can get that on other systems and it plays just as well.
Sure.
So I guess it just is what it is. If you wanted to buy it for a while and you felt like you're somebody who could resell something, it's fairly easy to take that thing, play it for 6 months if you like it, and then sell it for 80% of what you paid for it, and just consider that a rental fee.
That's not too bad. I, of course, have like a whole stack of things in my closet that are supposed to be sold to put on eBay or resell or
That's how I am.
Facebook or whatever. Yeah.
You do need memory expansion. I had to buy a decent size fast memory card in order to have more than a couple games installed on it at once. One game that is super fun, and I don't know if this is on other systems, but Tetris 99 is kind of fun if you really like Tetris. And then there's a Kirby Clash, which is like this weird co-op beat 'em up game. I don't even know how to explain it, but you level a character, and then every time you jump into a match, you get paired with 3 other Kirbys with all sorts of different build outs for their special powers and weapons, and then you go up against a boss, and you have to like beat this boss in a certain amount of time. That's free to play, I think, too. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what a
Boy. I also don't know what that is.
Android-based micro console. Sounds fun. You can install Android on your Switch. This is a thing, and it does not like it. Basically, it's kind of jank because you have to load it off an SD card. So it's not running off the internal SSD, but you can actually load up, and it mostly works Android on a Switch. So if you wanted to play like Android games and stuff, it'll actually Bluetooth the controllers to it and everything, and you can use the controllers, and it kind of works. Linus Tech Tips actually had a episode where they were streaming Steam games off the Android app on a Switch. So it was like inception of gaming. And to be fair, it didn't play great, but it did play. It did work.
Interesting.
And it was like Halo, so it was like even better. Yeah, they might. It's hard to figure out because, and you can only do this on the original Switch. So there's a version 2 where the version 1 had these like 2 contact points, and they actually make these 3D printed contact jumpers that you can buy online for like $5, or you can get plans to print them out yourself, or if you're fancy with a paper clip, you can do it yourself. And when you jump these 2 pins on the one side of the Nintendo, I can't get any more specific than that, I'm sure, because people have been shut down just for mentioning this, but you can get it into like system recovery mode, and then there's a whole slew of things you can do with the device that people have been playing with. They eventually patched that, so after a certain so many months of the system being out, if you bought or maybe the first year or something, if you bought one later, they covered those pins up, or they hit them or something, so you can't easily get to them. So I don't believe they've figured out a way to get around that. But in those early ones, there's some things you can do to get into there, and that's how. So you'd have to have one of those original ones, and then you can get to the bootloader essentially and make it boot off of that. And once it's running off the Android software, none of the Nintendo software is running. So Now, if you were to mod it in any other way using that, then and they caught that too, especially, you would get banned off the service. But yeah, they've been pretty nasty about suing people over that stuff too, from what I understand.
Well, Nintendo usually is like hypersensitive to that sort of stuff.
So, but back to your question about should you get one? I don't know. I would probably
fair.
buy a used one from the local used store and save a couple bucks, and just try to buy as much used as you can to save a couple bucks, because it's a pricey system for what you get, I think.
Yeah. No, I had it in my cart at one point, like 2 months ago, and then I was just like, I got the new 3DS like at one point, and then I played it for like 3 hours, and then I just set it down and never picked it up again. I'm like, is this worth it?
My problem with the 3DS, so I have an old 2DS, and I have a bunch of games on it and stuff. And I like that. So even now, I still once in a while have picked it up and been like, yeah, this is fun for like 10 minutes. But unless I'm traveling with it or I'm just stuck somewhere where that's all I can play, I quickly get bored of it. The nice thing about the Switch is you put it on the TV. Yeah. You can launch back in a chair with a controller. You're not, because it's uncomfortable to hold like a heavier gaming system up to your face and that tiny screen and the resolution and everything. But you put it on the big screen in your big TV, like an Xbox or something, you can lay on your bed with a controller and actually play through a game. It actually helps with that. You can kind of go back and forth. It's fine. There's no reason not to buy it, I guess, but I don't know if I can sell you on buying it. I don't know what you need me to do there.
I don't know that I need to do anything.
That's fair.
It's just a question I was asking myself, and I was like, should this be rhetorical or should I bring it up on the podcast? And then since we were talking about Breath of the Wild, I was like, I'll bring it up.
I would say if you haven't like played a really good Mario game in a long time, Mario is super worth playing, and so is Breath of the Wild for sure. Absolutely. And then there's some other things that are worth it on there, but those two are my favorite things so far. The only two reasons that I've seen to actually own them so far. Now, I'm sure there's lots of arguments against that. There's all sorts of games I haven't played. Mostly that is for my kids. I don't spend a lot of time on the device. I'm sure there's all sorts of games out there that are super fun for it that I just, I spend most of my time on my PC. I don't even use my Xbox anymore. My Xbox has been relegated to basically my oldest child will play Fortnite on it and my wife will play Witcher 3 on it. And that's basically all it does. And it's a media device, so it'll play like Netflix and stuff. All my gaming's done on my PC here.
Which is sensible.
We even have the other day we have this out too. We have a retro pie, whether I should admit it or not. That's actually pretty fun. I got Ethan playing a bunch of really old like Nintendo and Sega Genesis games. All ones I own legally, completely.
Of course. I would expect nothing less.
Right. All right. Video game stuff is fun. I haven't seen anything other than Doom and Warzones, which we've talked about, really come out.
I just read something about it the other day, like Riot is making some sort of first-person shooter. Which
yeah. Valorant.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. I don't know if I'll play it. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna check it out for sure. But it looks pretty sweaty, and I don't know if I'm sweaty enough, I guess. So if you are a fan of CSGO, which is super sweaty, like instant headshots, like Twitch mechanics, like knowing your positions and call outs, like if you're good at CSGO, you're a sweat lord for sure. And then taking something like Overwatch, again, a pretty sweaty game, and then combining the two. So it mostly plays like CSGO and its fundamentals, where somebody's laying a bomb or there's an objective, and its first person gun mechanics are very similar to CSGO, where like instant headshots and things like that. And you're buying, so in CSGO, as you play, you earn currency depending on how good you're doing. And you can buy upgraded guns as you go through the match. This is similar to that, but there's also like powers, which is where the Overwatch part comes in. So there are
Yeah.
characters who have different loadouts. So somebody might be able to do a smoke screen, for example, or somebody might have an arrow that's like Hanzo, where it's the sonar arrow and you fling it around a corner and you can briefly see around through walls if somebody's around there and stuff. And then the idea is you play and it's supposed to be hyper competitive. I will say the one thing that excites me the most, and this is my biggest soapbox if anybody's watched me for any period of time, is netcode. So obviously Riot has been super big into competitive play with League of Legends and stuff. They understand that stuff. Now, granted, League of Legends may not need the world's greatest netcode to run, but they have come out and they've almost flat out slapped some of the other people like Apex in the face by saying we are starting from the ground up with our netcode and our servers and how they run. And they are like 240 hertz servers, and which is how many times it refreshes its calculations per second.
Yep.
Which is huge because if you want it to be a precision game, you don't want things like desync. So if you're not familiar with desync, if I shoot you through a wall but you have a higher latency or a lower latency, all of a sudden you may have gone behind the wall where I didn't see that, or vice versa. Where I see it the most is on my screen, I've made it behind a wall and I'm in cover, but all of a sudden I die back before the wall hit, and because their latency's slower on their screen, I was still there and they shot me on their, and then their computer registered to the server, and the way the clock works out, the server allowed it, and it was like, okay, yeah, that looks fine. And then all of a sudden you died, even though you obviously outplayed. So if you're a highly competitive game, tick rates matter a lot, and netcode matters a lot for hit registration and things like that.
As I like to think of that, is every time a sword beat my shotgun in Halo.
Right. Yeah. So
every time.
Yes. So there's all sorts of games you're going to see this on, and nobody does netcode first. Nobody. That's my biggest complaint. I said it earlier about Apex Legends, which is still probably my favorite kind of just general play game right now. Mm-hmm. Apex Legends netcode is goddamn awful. Like, it's super bad. So in comparison, they have like, what were they saying, 20 or 40 hertz? No, I think they're like 20 hertz. And I just said 240 for this game. So they're only checking like things 20 times a second. This game is going to check it 240 times. Like, a good rate if you played like Battlefield 4 and stuff was like 40 or 60 hertz. So this is going to be a huge deal that they're going to build the servers that fast and that the game's going to run that well, hopefully. And they're putting a lot of money into the CDN and stuff for their game, the delivery network, so that you're always have the lowest ping possible and you're matched with the lowest ping people as possible. And they're putting a ton of work into that first and then putting the game on top, which is super smart. Everybody should be doing that. Apex should have done that. Warzone should do that, because it's obviously they didn't either.
If your game is built to be online, there's really no reason not to make that a primary focus, if not the focus.
My career mostly has been as a network engineer, so I'm super attuned to the netcode side of things. And I will say that nobody thinks, even in normal applications, nobody thinks about the network. That's always the last thing. They're like, why doesn't this work across the network? So I get why it happens. You bring in people who are crafting the game and the theory of the game and balancing the game and getting all these people to work, and you're only testing it inside your network on your computers, so everything always runs fine. And then you deploy it to a country that's 8,000 miles wide and has 350 million people in it, and physics becomes a thing, right? Like, light only travels so far. So whether you're using electricity or fiber optics, it's both running at approximately, or over the air microwaves. All that runs at approximately the speed of light. But even at that speed, you can only travel so far so fast. And there's all sorts of problems with that. So if I'm twice the distance from the server as you, how do you account for that? Right? Because the things I'm seeing is takes twice as long to get to me and twice as long to get back. So every game I've ever played throughout all my life has always had these kind of issues. I think this is the first game that is, if they've done it right and they're doing what they're saying they're doing, focusing on that first and then building the game on top of it. And that's super smart. So I'm super excited to see it. I hope it works. Riot Games has done really good work with League of Legends. Not that I've ever really played it, but I mean, it's obviously super popular.
Yep.
They seem to be a really good development house. And what if you've seen the trailers, go out there. There's gameplay trailers and stuff of like in-house development teams playing the game, and some people have been invited to play it now, and they've had NDAs lifted on talking about it. It looks and sounds super sweet. My only fear is that it's going to be super sweaty like CS:GO, and I can't hang in CS:GO. I can play it, it's fine, but I don't hang.
Yeah. I feel like the original CS was always best in a LAN party with local people just doing local stuff. And as soon as you went online, granted that was in the era of not so great internet to begin with,
Right.
but like online just changed everything and it became much less fun.
When you're playing with a group of guys that have put like 20 hours into it,
Yes,
it's fun. When you go online and some dudes put 10,000 hours into it, it's not fun. Like,
yeah,
he's up headshotting you no matter where you are on the map every time you move, and then if you're playing a team of people that play together, or even if they haven't played together but they have a substantial amount of time and they know the call outs and they know the strats and they know how to rotate on the map, these are huge parts of CSGO which I've never learned, which is, if you don't know them, A, you're going to lose, and B, you will be flamed immensely if you have voice chat on. Like, they will yell at you and call you the worst things you've ever been called if you don't rotate right, or if you know,
yeah.
if you don't pick the right weapons or whatever. So it's just as bad as if you're playing, say, Dota or Leagues of Legends. Like, you can get flamed pretty hard if you don't know the game, and it takes a lot of time to know the game.
You get to know it. Yeah.
Yeah, Valorant. It's a weird name. It was originally called Project A. That was like the working title for it, but Valorant is the name of it. A couple other games I played. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Spectre got me into the beta for Spellbreak, which is another battle royale game, but it's like cell shaded, so it's a little cartoony, but it looks really nice. And you're basically these overpowered mages who pick up gauntlets, and the gauntlets have different power based on elements. So you have earth, wind, fire, air, lightning, and acid, I guess. And basically, there's different degrees of levels. So it's like gray, blue, purple, orange, or whatever the standard coloring is. And you pick up, and they have combinations. So, like, if I pick up an earth gauntlet, one of the spells I can do is this giant boulder that I throw at you. But then with my fire gauntlet, I can light it on fire. It becomes like a giant fire boulder. And then I can create tornadoes with wind and light them on fire.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you have two gauntlets, one of each. They can't be the same. So you'll have two different spells that you're carrying around. And then you get other power-ups, but mostly it's between the two spells and how the dynamic works. So like I said, you can create a tornado and then throw ice or fire into it, and it makes it like an ice tornado. Or you can throw ice on the ground and slide through it. And so there's just all sorts of quirky things you can do with the different spells. It's super fun and it's super fast. The only problem I have with it and why I didn't stick with it is it's a giant visual clusterfuck. So like all of a sudden, because it's 3 versus 3, or it's 3-man teams, and there's like 20 teams or whatever it turns out to be. And when you get in a fight, like 2 or 3 teams show up and get in this giant fight, and there's just spells going off in every direction. And people can fly, so you need to know verticality. You need to know left, right. You need to track people through these giant spells you can't see through, walls of fire and tornadoes and ice boulders, and so, and you can't hear anything because the spells are loud. So you can't audibly track people either. So the game is super fun. If I think it's a beta right now. It's not going to be free to play from what I understand, which is a bummer because it's really not good enough to not be free to play.
Sure.
But if you're interested in that, check it out, or whoever's listening. But Spellbreak, so it's definitely interesting. I streamed it a little bit. But it's not something I'd stick with. Everybody's got to be a battle royale now.
It's the only cool thing right now.
The other one that I've been doing, it's kind of a mix between like Monster Hunter and a battle royale, maybe, is the Cycle, which I think that is supposed to be free to play. And that is, you land on a planet and there's like minerals you gotta collect, resources you got to collect, and there's all these monsters that are running around, and then you got to like collect all of these minerals and kill all these monsters. Meanwhile, you're fighting the other hunters as well that are out there and collecting their resources, and then you have to get to a evac ship before a storm comes in. So it's kind of battle royale. Again, it's not very polished. It's really weird. You'll get in gunfights, and the model, the person you're fighting, will just look in one direction the whole way, even though they're running around and obviously shooting you. They'll be facing like super broken, but it's in alpha or beta or whatever. You know,
I was gonna say that sounds like pretty early version of it.
Yeah, but it's fun if somebody's looking for that too.
What is the like 2-person team? Crap, I can't remember the name of it now. But like it's a weird like quasi fantasy western. Crap, this is gonna drive me nuts now because I don't remember the name of it at all. But it's like an online. It's like an online, essentially first maybe 3rd-person game. It really narrows it down. But it's like 2 people teams going around and like you're fighting to like crap. You know what? Never mind. I remember not enough about this to even like come remotely close to
Western 2-person FPS game.
It's like fantasy western, like you're there collecting like points for like killing spirits or something. I don't know. It's stupid. It's stupid that I don't remember this.
There is that. No, I know what you're talking about. It's not. We're just Googling here.
Google. Tell me what I don't know.
It's not Remnant, is it? No.
Probably not.
From the Ash.
From the Ash sounds familiar, but I don't know if that's it either.
I've seen it. There is a like cowboy, but it's more like a.
Like, yeah, cowboy is not the primary aspect of it, but it seems like it's kind of like that 1800s era.
Like Scary Days, 7 Ways to Die, like video game where you get hunted down. I don't know if it's 2-player though. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Good luck.
What can I find out?
Tom Hanks had coronavirus, or has it?
Did you not know that?
No, I did.
Like a week and a half ago. Huh?
Right. Well, it's been since. I'm just saying.
Oh, I guess that's true. We haven't done this in 2 weeks, though.
Yeah, we haven't done this in 2 weeks. Just throwing it out there. Back to coronavirus. Dead air's fun. I like dead air.
Dead air is the best. As we both just look at our Google.
Apparently, how do I see? Oh, this is fun. Somebody took the United States and split it into Hunger Game districts.
You mean like the Hunger Games did that?
I don't know. No. Well, they took the map of the U.S. and like somebody else. We're District 6, I guess. 11 and 10 is huge, but I'm sure these are based on population.
Probably.
3 is tiny. The capital is out in Colorado.
Denver. Yeah. I think that is how it is supposed to be in the actual Hunger Games storyline.
I never read
those
Basically,
books. Oceans have raised in like Denver after the war is like the biggest surviving population group
because of its altitude.
Which between that and the nuclear war or whatever happens, I don't even know, but like it becomes the capital, and then as you get further away, you get out to the higher districts, which also makes sense as far as like your population of the U.S. on the east specifically is like all the further east you go, the more population there is. So as the waters raise, the more population would come in.
Sure.
Anyways, yeah.
Guess that makes sense. I did not read those books and barely paid attention to the movies. They were entertaining enough that I watched them and was like, all right, yeah, that was fun. But
I watched the 1st and the 4th movie, so I got the beginning and the end.
I watched them all. I did not hate them. They just were They were what they were. Have you watched any of... I was hoping to have this finished by this podcast, but I did not. But the Altered Carbon Season 2.
Nope. I haven't seen any of it yet.
You're fired and I'm fired. We're both fired for not watching because we talked about Altered Carbon like crazy mad and neither of us had finished. I'm going to say this. For all the talk we put into the books,
just wipe it all out.
Get it out of here.
No books.
They take themes from the books, don't get me wrong. But it's all wrong. And it's all jumbled up. And it's like, okay, we're just doing things and we're going to hit notes. Like we're hitting notes, familiar notes here and there from the books. But so far, it is absolutely off the rails. Like season 1 was pretty good. Not great, but pretty good for the first book. Now, so just because it's the first thing you learn, spoilers, we're on Harlem World, which is where the third book takes place.
Yeah.
Right off the bat.
Okay.
So pretty much right off the bat. So it's all messed up already. Like it's way off the rails. And the time frame from when he said he was on Harlem Worlds last is all messed up, and like they're really focusing on finding the girl who was running the group, the Envoy group. Which again, back to the books, the Envoys weren't a terrorist like freedom fighter organization. They were actually the government bad guys.
Yeah. Very different.
So that was part of season 1 that they totally got wrong, and the parts I hated the most. Though I did like season 1,
which to me kind of ruins part of the core of the story, because like Absolutely. One of the reasons why him as an envoy is such a like in the books he is a desired commodity because he is a known like government trained specialist, like beyond anybody that like his training goes beyond what anybody in existence really has right now.
Right.
And like
because he's rare, because there's like there's not a lot of envoys that exist anymore. They've all been wiped, and it's not a program that runs anymore. So like his training is part of why he gets
away with things.
Well, A, it gets him out of things. B, it gets him into things. And C, that's why he gets brought into these stories, because people know he's an envoy, and that gets him where he's going. That's kind of the whole point. And
which, when you turn him into the envoy into being a terrorist thing instead of like an officially sanctioned thing, it kind of loses a little bit of that like desirability, if that makes sense.
So like everybody still is like, oh, you have that envoy training because apparently they were a big deal, but it's not the same. It doesn't carry the same weight. And obviously, if you're the state-sponsored, like, super soldiers that he was, that meant he was probably a bastard doing bastardly things for the state. And that's part of his character, too. And that kind of goes away, because now everything he did that was bastardly before was all in the guise of freedom fighting, right, against the bastardly state. Which is, I go on for a ton of time in a previous episode about how that ruins his character from being kind of a bastard to doing things for the good. At some point there's a redemption arc of sorts, and you kind of almost throw all that away in season 1, because you come from a place where he was a freedom fighter. He'd already like thrown away the state, and it's because in this the state's bad, which I would agree is now too, but it's
as we sit in our homes peacefully
with martial law raining down over us. But yes,
but not in name. Not in name. Well,
martial law light, we'll say. But yes, long story short is it ruins the character, and this just continues that thread even more. And it's good so far. The guy who plays Falcon, I forget his name, but he's the main character.
Anthony McKenzie?
That sounds
Something
right.
Like that.
Anthony sounds right, at least. He's good so far. I've really enjoyed him. The action, he looks good. He's ripped as fuck, and he's the whole idea is he's in a super soldier skin that they like got some aftermarket, like black market military skin for him. So he's playing that role pretty well, and still sticking to things. But yeah, for the most part, I've enjoyed the season so far. What we have watched, it's kind of slow, but if you're looking for it to relate to the books by this point, like I said, the notes are there, but it's not the books at all. Like it's totally skipping book 2, and I don't even know if it's really going into Woken Furies, right? So we'll see.
Well, I figured book 2 was going to be a pretty hard sell for a TV series. Like, I mean, it could work as a season, but it would literally be a standalone thing that says, "Oh, hey, do you remember this character? We're gonna throw him into something completely different now."
But that's what I wanted out of the show. Like
I know. I
like you, and granted, I know there's only 3 books, but if this got really popular, you want to do like 6 seasons. That's the method of the show, right? Like
right.
you have a reoccurring character, but given the time spans of like hundreds of years that can go by between these shows, the way the technology in this universe works, like your stat can be thousands of years old if you want it to be, and that they're spread out over solar systems and galaxies or whatever. Like, maybe not galaxies, but they're spread out over the stars quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could literally just go, hey, we got this cool familiar character, we can change the actor who plays him every time, but we'll hit the same kind of notes from his character and put him in these kind of crazy situations on a new planet. Yep. All new stuff. Like, no reason you can't do that. Like, that's the whole point of the character. And you could do that forever. Like, you could literally have a show that ran for a really long time, and every season is just completely almost a standalone, where it just kind of calls back to familiar strings that are spread out through the stories.
You know what? I've changed my mind. Let's boycott Altered Carbon until they give us a Commonwealth Saga TV show Netflix.
Oh my god!
Wouldn't that be amazing? It's so amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I did eventually listen to those. Explain to the people what the Commonwealth Saga is.
So the Commonwealth Saga is a simple 2-book. In fact, I think it was one of the books I grabbed off of that shelf behind me at some point to show you guys how cool it was. But it is a 2-part sci-fi giant epic space opera novel set, and it is amazing. It is basically Game of Thrones level, like 15 storylines going on at once with characters that are all very well fleshed out, some that you hate, some that you love, and it is telling this very great overarching epic storyline. And it was basically made to be a limited television show on Netflix or HBO or something like that. You should check it out. The first book is called Pandora's Star. The second one is called Judas Unchained, and they are amazing. The audiobooks for them are both like 45 and 55 hours long. The
They're
books
really good.
themselves
That's how I consumed
like,
them.
And if you really like them, there are 2 additional, and reason why you're talking about Altered Carbon made me think of this. There's a trilogy that comes after it called the Void Trilogy, which takes place 2,000 years later in the same universe. And then there is a second 2-book series that takes place in between the 2, that I have not read or listened.
Tell Steven to get off your internet. Breaking up again.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. I like breaking up.
Yeah, the story is quite interesting. So this is the one, right? So I read 2 series that were pretty similar at the time, but with Pandora's Star, this is the one where they find the star that disappears, right? Like, that's the storyline, and they have to go investigate what's going on.
Yeah, so like there's so they have, human race has already expanded across like a big part of the galaxy. Like, they're on multiple planets, multiple star systems, and they're observing this, basically a star way outside of their range suddenly just overnight just disappears. Just, it's there 1 second, the next second just gone. And it's far enough away that like this is like thousands, if not millions of years ago that the star disappeared. But how can that happen? Like, there was no supernova, there was no
blinked.
It just blinked. Like, it wasn't like it got brighter and it got dimmer. It just was there and then gone.
There's a neat scene there where the guy who observed it through physics jumps on a faster than light travel to another planet farther away so he could observe it again and actually record the phenomenon better, which is actually, I thought, was a really neat. It's a small part of the book, but I mean, it's the thing that it's doing is a huge part of the book, but that little piece of it, of him like going, oh crap, did I just see what I thought I saw? And then like getting on a transport and flying to a planet farther away where he knew he could time it right to see it again was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and part of the thing that I love about it, like, I mean, the storyline and the plot and everything are like really well done. But it's written by Peter F. Hamilton, he is just great at building a world and then just writing a story with that world already kind of having its own shape and its own existence. And that example Adam just gave is a really great example of that. One of the big things about this that like I really liked it because it breaks a lot of the sci-fi tropes, but it doesn't break sci-fi, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's kind of similar to Altered Carbon in the sense that like everybody basically has a chip that backs up their memory / personality / whatever. So like truly killing somebody is pretty hard to do unless you like purposely go for their chip, which is like the ultimate no-no in their society. But also pretty much as soon as they got to Mars for the first time, they discovered basically wormhole like transportation technology. So like they never really developed space travel per se, so much as they learned how to open portals. So like you'll be on Earth and like you'll be at like this main interstellar train station essentially where they have all these different portals on train tracks that are just permanently held open. You just got a train go through the portal and suddenly you're on this planet that are like 6 light years away or whatever. And it's a very different dynamic of space exploration. And there's even some scenes in the book where like you get to like witness people like opening portholes like across the galaxy, kind of exploration, like just opening up and looking. And then once you kind of get the bearings of like what's there, okay, well there's this planet here, let's open up one down on the planet and see what's. It's cool. It's very cool.
I think, and not to get too spoilery, but one of the fun things with that is one of the more famous guy. What's the guy that lives in the asteroid? I'm forgetting his
Ozzy?
name. Yeah, Ozzy's like one of the best characters, and he was one of the 2 guys that invented this technology or discovered it or whatever. And there's a fun scene where they were trying to get people to Mars, and
Yeah.
he beat them with the wormhole. So like they flew all the way out there, and like he was there already because they had invented the wormhole, and he just went to Mars.
Yeah. So basically, like, yeah, it is like the first scene of the book, more or
Right.
less, which is like this pilot who's been working his whole life as an astronaut, and like he gets selected for the first mission to Mars, and they land, and like he's one of the first people to get out on the
This
planet.
crazy scientist is standing there.
Yeah, and then he's and like they're there and they're looking around and they're like, oh, this is amazing. And then somebody like suddenly they just get like hit with a rock that was like thrown at them or something like that. Like, what the heck? And they turn around and then there's just like this guy in like a taped together, like patched, like suit, more or less air suit there, just kind of like waving at them, and they can look through and like they just see this gap behind him, and like there's just like this California, I don't remember what college it was, like Berkeley or something, I don't know. But like you just see into this classroom on Earth through this portal behind the guy, and they're all just like laughing and pointing and flipping him off or whatever. I don't remember exactly how it went, but
It's a great scene. You should read the book just for that scene too. Like this
it's
is
right at the
that world
beginning,
building
so you know
stuff, and he's one of the main characters, obviously through the book.
both of them are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And they're like, and he's super famous. He ends up like owning his own asteroid because he invented this technology. So it's kind of neat. He has his own lair.
Which another level to it too is like not only do you have like the chip thing, like we're in Altered Carbon, like you just get yourself put into new bodies or clones or whatever it is, and like they have clones and stuff in this too, but for the most part they actually just have like straight up body rejuvenation. So
Yep.
like you can
Rejuvenation
essentially,
clinics that you go to, and
it's like, oh well, my body got to be like 60 something now, and you know what, I'm just tired of this old
now
aches
I'm
and
20.
pain, and I'm rich, so I'm gonna go in, and like you go in and you come out and you're like the body of like a 15-year-old, and you're like, all right, let's do this.
Now I relive my life over and over and over. You still age and stuff. So yeah, I can't recommend that book series enough either. I don't think I never did any of the stuff after. I just did that single book series, right? Because where
The Void trilogy is the next one after, and it's very different it's much less focused on, I mean, it is still very much focused on humanity, but it happens 2,000 years later. And at that point, the humans are part of a much larger, like, galactic, like, I was gonna say community. Community probably isn't quite the right word, but like there's a lot more alien interactions than there is in the first
United
book. Like there,
Federation of Planets.
yeah, something kind of like that. And plus, humanity has been existing for another 2,000 years since then. And that not just humanity, but like humanity with rejuvenation and people like
Are that
persisting
old?
yeah, and
Is
yeah,
Ozzy still in it?
he does make an appearance. He does make an appearance.
Nice. That's all I need. His journey in the original series, was it just 2 books?
Yes, it was just $2 in the first one. But
the hardest part for me to get through, though it was fun, it was slow, but it was fun, was his like space spiritual walk. So at one point, because these like there's these aliens that are almost like elves that exist kind of at a higher plane, and with the walking through these portals, there's some externality to the universe, and he ends up in this like stream of weirdness. It's hard to explain, where it's just like in between the walls of reality, I guess, and like it represents itself as like a river at some point, and like they're rafting and like trying to survive in this wilderness, but it like goes between worlds and stuff, and that was fun. It was good to get through, but it was hard to get through, I guess.
Yeah, like his story is pretty key to like the flow of the books. But yeah, it's a very different change of pace when you get to those sections.
Right.
But yeah, it's
the part that gives his arc the best, right? Because he's kind of this cocky, egotistical, loner kind of science guy, and throughout this like weird camping trip, so to speak, he has to take care of this kid, and he finds these other aliens, and he gets lost, and he makes these friends, and it kind of gives his character a really good arc and teaches him the lessons he needs to learn to like move forward. And
which I feel like it's fair to say, and it wouldn't be too much spoilers to say, like that whole thing we're talking about, the star disappearing at the beginning, like turns into like a crisis for essentially all of humanity. So like everybody's trying to figure all this stuff out, and like this journey that he goes on is kind of his way of being like, I am the smartest person essentially in the like human world, and how do I figure this out?
Right.
And so like he purposely ventures into what is the unknown for him, which is where he ends up. All that to say, great. And he's just one of like 12 main characters that are like deeply delved into throughout the whole thing.
That's where it gets into like Game of Thronesy, where like there's just a lot of like a lot of storylines you got to keep track of, which is fun. They're all good.
Yeah. Like in a lot of ways, like, I mean, obviously it's a futuristic sci-fi, so there's not like houses in the sense of like medieval times, but like
kind of there's
but yeah, like in the sense of when you can live essentially for hundreds of years, like when you like have these rich people owning, like running corporations and becoming like super mega powerful, and like we always say nowadays, like you can't take rich with you forever, but like what if you can, because you don't ever die. And so you end up with all of these basically economic empires, which end up being very family driven. And like, so you have the patriarch who is like, or matriarch who is like running everything, and then their kids who kind of like create all like the second layer underlings controlling it, and like it's kind of spreads out over the years, which these books take place, well, like I think 300 or 400 years after modern times today. Whereas like the oldest of the like first ones to get rejuvenation essentially are like would be like our generation, essentially, like when we get old and then we don't die.
Right.
So they've been around for a couple hundred years already, at least.
What was the name of the book series again?
The Commonwealth Saga by Peter F. Hamilton.
Definitely check that out if you're looking at. So that brings me to a book that I listened to, and I think we talked about this once offline. Have you read The Collapsing Empire? Is this one that you told me about, or did I find this?
I think this is one that you found and told me about. I'm pretty sure I actually do have it in my Audible.
I think it was a free Audible book, honestly, is how I found it. By John Scalzi, if I'm saying that right. Scalzi. So very similar in some respect, that the human race, its future, and we're spread out amongst the stars, and kind of like there's kind of the head of the human race is kind of this priestess queen type thing, and it's a shared consciousness for that character. So as the previous one dies through technology, it kind of shares its knowledge. Like there's basically a supercomputer that stores the brains of all the previous versions of that character.
Oh, like the Kree Supreme Intelligence.
Yeah, or maybe like calls Yang the stupid airbender guy where he's the avatar, right? So like kind of like the avatar, but like you don't just know it, it's like part of a computer system thing. And this,
which, speaking of which, also relates to the trilogy that comes after the Commonwealth Saga, but continue.
So I really found this book fascinating. I didn't put it down once I started, actually. And so kind of the same thing, we're spread out and there's this existential crisis. It's not with this foreign object in this far off star, but we have discovered a pre-existing lane of faster than light travel, like tunnels, like wormholes that allow us to spread out. And they're just all interconnected all over the place, and they start collapsing, and nobody knows why. Like we didn't really make them; we discovered them, and so like there's a handful of characters you got to keep track of. There's planets in the far reaches. Like what are they going to do? There's kind of houses, so to speak, as well in the same kind of vein. There's a lot of similarities, at least notes and threads, versus the Commonwealth Saga, but some very different things as well. So if you're interested in either of those things, I would actually recommend that book too. I've only listened to the first book, I believe. I think I got it free, and it's like a 9-hour audiobook or something. It's not even super long. But,
which I did just confirm that I do have it in my Audible collection. So
I would give it a shot.
I've not listened to it yet.
I would give it a shot. It's a well done audiobook for sure, and it's narrated by Will Wheaton, which is fun. And so I think he does a good job with audiobooks. I've listened to several things he's done, and you get to listen to this kind of empire start to collapse because these tunnels are going down, and all of a sudden all these planets that were all interconnected very quickly through interstellar travel are now about to be cut off, and they all have their kind of drama and stuff. So I don't know if there's a book 2 out.
I bet their shoe store is empty very quickly.
Yes, toilet paper was gone instantly. Future toilet paper, future paper, completely and utterly gone. So Commonwealth Saga and Collapsing Empire. I would I don't know if there's like a saga around that, but I know the first book's called Collapsing Empire. No, that is the series. The Interdependency book 1 is the subtitle or something.
So the Interdependency series, Collapsing Empire.
Okay, but yes, there you go. The Interdependency. So same kind of veins. There's a lot of similar notes there. Both are super good. I like both of them. I would suggest those. And that'll be my reading suggestion for the night. I don't have a comic book. I have not had any comic books to read. My wife did start reading Scott Pilgrim, so I think that's fun. I hope she continues. I don't know if she will. Which actually brings to a piece of news I didn't bring up, which was Brian Lee O'Malley has actually made a new book called Snot Girl.
Oh yes, I have book 1 over on my bookshelf.
Nice,
which is from some time ago. But
I just happened to be reading an article on CBR or something that was like why the book is actually worth reading. It's amazing. I hate the title. It instantly turns me off. I'm not a fan of that type of stuff, but I may give it a shot just because this article made it sound like it was good, and obviously Scott Pilgrim is
amazing,
way up there, S tier type stuff. So
yeah, it from what I only have like the first individual issue, so like I don't have like any like collected graphic novel or anything with it. But essentially it's a girl who is a model, but like she is secretly super geeky and not cool, and then she just has snot that falls out of her nose constantly. Like it is like a physical condition of some sort.
You had me until the snot.
I mean, that's why she's a snot girl. Like right. I don't
no,
know.
I get it. All the pictures I saw, she had hanging from her nose, but like
Which when she's modeling, like they wipe it off and they take the pictures and they wipe it and then they take the pictures. So like she's not pictured with it, but it's I don't know. It's interesting. I will say like the first issue was good, but it wasn't enough for me to continue buying
I might try to
So
get a copy of it, or digitally at least.
sure.
And
I mean, it's Brian Lee O'Malley, so I will not tell you not to do it. That's for sure.
yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything else outside of Scott Pilgrim of his, but Scott Pilgrim is so good that I'm willing to give anything else he's done a try. So maybe that's part of it. Read up on whatever you got comic book wise, because the other thing is, especially if you're in Michigan and some of these other states, you can't go get your comic books anymore. And
Not essential.
Diamond has actually halted their shipping altogether, from what I understand, if not nationwide, to a lot of places. And Image and Boom and some of these other places have actually issued refunds if your comic book store can't sell their issues. They're actually going to buy them back. So that's kind of interesting. So comic books are going to be almost as hard to get as toilet paper for the next, I don't know, month or so. So luckily I have a backlog of several thousand comics I still haven't read. So if I get bored, I can find those. Yeah, I'm saving them for when the power goes out and internet goes down. I can have hundreds
Get
of
over
hours.
it with a candle in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And accidentally burn it down.
Oh no, that's terrible. That's super terrible. Also, coronavirus related, Dynamite and Cosmicology is apparently giving away free first issues of all of their like comic book runs.
Nice.
Dynamite does some weird stuff, but like Army of Darkness, and can't think of some of the other ones now, but
yeah, they do a lot of weird
like almost TV's movie spin-off type books.
That combined with like really old, like now
video games.
Yeah, it's basically a different franchise, like product stuff, and then they have a lot of like when they first started, they did a lot of like old public domain superhero comics, and they were the ones that kind of pushed that back in the day. Which most of the public domain ones are public domain because nobody knows or cares about them anymore, so it really didn't mean much. But
yeah, so they have a whole list of like number ones that will be free on Cosmicology 2, I guess, is their contribution to the world, why it's dying. All right, Ryan, it's 11 o'clock. We sure managed to get COVID-19 episode done.
Until the next COVID-19 episode in 2 weeks.
To COVID-20, hopefully. Yeah, I guess technically we will probably still be under the boot of the government until during our next episode. So
and who knows? We haven't talked about this at all, but with everybody stuck in their houses, maybe we'll just decide to do a random in between episode. Who knows?
I would totally up for that. The nice thing is we were socially distancing ourselves before it was cool, as we mentioned early on in our show. We are only a couple miles away from each other, and we refuse to do this in person.
Will not.
Yeah. Just, so,
heck, we haven't even like hung out outside of just doing this.
Yeah, like, it's been quite a while, other than like dropping off net cams and stuff between each other. So this is our kind of only hangout. So I'd be down if we want to do some interim episodes. I believe, I'm just going to say this because it'll make it true, we have our first guest kind of lined up. We are working out details on getting a guest and formatting that and figuring out how it's going to work. I would like to maybe try to do that a little bit more here and there if we have people that we find interesting or can just help us fill 2 hours. I'll take either or.
Either or, you know.
And so one of these times you may see us, we're going to be in portrait mode probably. There'll be 3 of us on the screen with the chat off to one side or something, and we'll have a conversation with somebody else who's nerdy and does fun things.
Which I'm pretty sure it was when my connection was completely dead. But Steven did come in and was standing or sitting on my bed, like right behind my shoulder.
Oh, yeah, I never saw that.
Like 2 minutes, but it was right during the period where you guys couldn't see or hear me. So
we can have a Steven episode too. I'm 100% behind that. So
I don't know if I am, but you know what.
We will we'll scope it out. We'll figure it out. I think there's some fun stuff we can do. I'm having fun with this still, and we've made it past our 7th episode, last episode.
This is 8 now, right?
Yeah, we're real boys. We are a real podcast now. We've beaten 90% of them, from what I understand. and that number is only getting higher now. So
yeah, pretty soon we'll be at 92.
Yep. Yeah, 92%. I can't wait. It'll be. So that's it. I think that's really all I have for tonight. Everybody stay safe. Ryan, is there anything else you wanted to say to the masses before we let them go?
Nope. Enjoy your time inside. Don't get too stir crazy. That's it.
Yep, but stay inside if you can. I know it's hard, but do what we can do. This will go up on YouTube like they all do. I did not record the first 5 minutes because Ryan forgot to tell me. So I may have to rip this off of Twitch again, but whatever.
Can't be held responsible.
You can't. I mean, it's fine. I'm the production manager, I guess, so it's my fault. But whatever it is, hopefully Wednesday this will be up on YouTube like the rest of them are. If you are interested or you had any kind of fun and you want to check out our previous ones that you hadn't seen, check out the link below in the panel for YouTube. You can see all of our past episodes and any of the future ones that you missed. They will all go up there. We do this every other week. So the next one for this will be, I should have this up already, the 6th of April, it looks like. So come back 9 to 11 Eastern time on Twitch, right here where you're at right now. If you're watching this, or YouTube later, I'll have links in the description below to my Twitch channel. Follow me there. Drop a sub prime if you can, or a prime sub. There you go.
Yeah.
Or just any sub, whatever you want to do. Help keep us going, buying these fun lights and equipments and things that we're doing. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop likes, comments, share things. I know if you didn't see the show, you see there's a chat live here. You can chat with us live. If you missed that, go ahead and drop comments in the YouTube. We'll answer those too. We watch those. And either way, keep up on our content. We'll see you back here on the 6th. And in between that, if we do any episodes, watch our socials. We'll announce those on Twitter or Instagram, depending on who you're following. Mm-hmm. And maybe not I mentioned this earlier in the show, I've taken a week off streaming because everything's going on in between work and COVID, and I'm trying to keep the family prepped and ready to go for what's going on. This week might be sparse on streaming, but I imagine by the time we do this again, I'll be back to streaming regularly 9 to 11. So if you want to just come hang out while I play video games, you can do that as well.
We should be super lame and just make new characters and play through Old Republic co-op style.
I could re-download it. I just uninstalled it from the last time I tried that. But if we wanted to stream a couple nights while we're going stir crazy in the house, you let me know and I will get it re-downloaded and we can try that.
Maybe.
I'd be down.
Just throwing out ideas,
Yep. So socials, all that stuff. The panels below has everything. Go down there and buy some beard oil too. Like don't let your beard go bad in this time. Keep it trimmed up and get some beard oil.
Mammoth Distillery. If you want to support the channel, we will support you.
And shorts.
And shorts.
You got nothing else to do. You're not going nowhere. You might as well drink too.
Get Northern Michigan stuff. It's better.
Right. It is better. We're so good at drinking up here. We're really, really, really good at it. So
we're really good.
All right. It's past 11 now. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.